Hey guys, this is Vinay. You're watching my show Let's Talk. Today we have a very interesting guest on the show. She's been a counselor for over 20 years. Recently, she was known for treating one of supremely talented actresses of India. She's definitely more than that. Please welcome Anna Chandy. Hi Anna, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hi Vinay, thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure having you. I'm very curious to know, how did you become a counselor? How was the childhood days? Was it that you thought while you were growing up? Tell us more about it.
No, I think my childhood days, I was not such a thinker. I was carefree. Although I had a difficult childhood, I grew up in a conflictual environment.
Sure.
I was extroverted, I was friendly. So there was no definite focus as such in my career.
Okay. It was a normal upbringing, and then you finished your college and schools, but you were never inclined to take up counseling as a profession.
When I look back, I think more than normal, I would say very traditional Indian upbringing.
Sure.
Somewhere you just go, you go through school and college.
Yeah.
Your focus and aim is to just achieve a degree, as they say.
Yeah.
And being from a typical Syrian Christian family, the next step is to get married.
And you got married early?
Yes, I got married early, and my whole career actually started after my marriage.
Wow. What happened after wedding that you chose counseling?
So about 6 months after I got married, my husband's younger brother had a nervous breakdown, and he was diagnosed with a mental illness. My husband, being the older son, had decided that he was going to, we were going to be the caregivers of his sibling. So when my young brother-in-law came to live with us, it was all too new and too bizarre, and I didn't understand this whole world. Sure. And that's how I enrolled in my first counseling program. So
it was one of your family members who made you to take up counseling, not in a bad way, but he was your first patient.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And that did it add a lot of pressure for you because you had to deal with your brother-in-law?
Yes, a lot of pressure being a caregiver, and a pressure being a caregiver in an area which is actually, there's a lot of stigma. You don't talk about mental illness even today in India.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hidden subject. So there was always nobody you could just ask a question openly to.
Yeah. And when you talk about mental illness, people generally feel there's only one thing: the person is mad. There's much more, nuances to that, right?
Absolutely. So, actually the term mad is also used very lightly and very colloquially.
True.
Or in Hindi you hear people saying like pagal hai.
True.
They don't treat mental illness just like any other illness. We have various illnesses of the body, and mental illness is one of them.
Yeah. But very curious to know, when you took up counseling and you were treating your brother-in-law, it couldn't have happened just like that, right? There should be something inside you to actually think that you can be a good counselor. What was that inner thing that told you that I should take it up and I'll be good at treating people?
I think it's a really a key question you're asking. One of the things to be an effective counselor,
sure,
or really a professional counselor, is that when you're learning counseling, it's actually learning about yourself. I cannot deal with an individual outside of me unless I really know myself.
True.
And I think that became the key motivator, because as I started my counseling journey until today, I've been practicing for 20 years.
Wow.
Every day with every client, there's a discovery about myself, an aspect of an element of my own personality. And I think that became really the driver for me.
Wow.
So I learned counseling, and then I did voluntary counseling, because 20 years ago, nobody came to counselors.
Yeah.
So I did voluntary work for the first 10 years of my life. I didn't charge anybody.
Wow.
The first 1 year of my profession, I didn't see one client. Nobody would come.
Even though it is not for money.
Yeah.
Even though it's a voluntary work.
And also socially, once people knew that I was a counselor, if you go into a social setting, people are running away from you, because again, there's some kind of bizarre idea that as soon as I engage with an individual, I'm going to understand what's going on in his mind.
But why is it so with Indians? I mean, why don't we accept that we are all we have our own limitations and it's good to get help. Why is it that Indians don't think that way?
I think because there's a stigma associated with mental health and mental illness. And I think in India we lack the awareness and the information.
True.
And the government has also, if you look at our budget,
Yeah.
there's
Very
0.06% for mental health in the
It's very
health
sad.
yeah.
And you deal with a lot of people, and you were saying that you've practiced for over 20 years. Does it take a toll on your personal health? Personal health, when I mean it's your mental health, there'll be a lot of negativity from your clients and depression and stuff. We'll come to depression later, but how do you deal with the negativity that you deal all the day?
Yeah, so there are a few things that we need to do professionally.
Sure.
One is metaphorically, if somebody is inside a well,
Yeah.
you never jump into the well with them to save
Pull them up.
Yeah, you always stay out of the
Sure.
well. So in the actual counselling process, I hear very, very traumatic stories. I'm always outside of the story,
Sure.
of the narrative. The second thing is a very conscious, focused regiment about my own mental health. For example, thrice a week I do yoga. Thrice a week I go to a gym, because I think good mental health is dependent on physicalities.
True, very true.
Then I do meditation. I also am very particular every week that I have body massages. I do not watch any violent movies after 6 o'clock in the evening, simply because anything that you watch in the evenings, it actually, when you go to sleep, you sleep, but your subconscious is still working.
Okay.
And it's processing. So I do not watch violence. It's a joke at home. I discourage my husband and my children from watching anything violent.
Do they understand now?
I'm not sure if they understand. They tease me about
They
it,
deal
but
with it.
they are willing to go along with it.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
They've learned to deal.
Yeah, and they just think that their mother has all these philosophies. But I do think it makes a huge difference.
It does, yes. I mean, after you're saying that, I can recollect my own experiences. When you go with a very hectic day and you think about what to do next, and when you're occupied in your head, you get these disturbed sleeps, dreams, nightmares, and all of that. Very interesting point. I think this will help our viewers seeing this. Now, while we're talking about people seeing this, I want you to give a piece of advice to all the young counselors, or rather people who want to take up counseling as their career. What would you tell them?
So Vinay, if I look back at my career and I look at what is it, and now I have a huge client base, and what is it I did then, and what is it I do now, and which is different. I think in the first few years, you focus a lot on the technicalities of counseling. And now, being more seasoned and more mature, I think counseling is really about being there for the person where they are in that moment.
True.
So the focus really now becomes about the person and not my technicalities. I hear this the whole time with young counselors. I have young trainees. Everybody's focusing on, as counselors, we are supposed to create empathy, build empathy.
Yeah.
I don't think you create or build empathy. I think empathy happens when you're just there for the other person, wherever they are, in whatever state they are in. Just being able to be there for them at a very bodily and soul level. And that's very different from just this, in empathy building, I hear people saying, oh, you just paraphrase. Yeah. It's much more than paraphrasing.
It's the inner thing that you feel. But what does it take to be a good counselor? If you have to say simple traits that people can cultivate in their lives who wants to be a counselor, what does it take to be a good one?
I would think one is attention skills. Sure. And when I say attention skills, not to what the person is saying, not to what the person is not saying.
Okay.
Observation. Mm-hmm. Observation really to see if there's congruence. That is, very often I say something but my body is indicating that that's not what I mean.
And you can catch that.
You can catch that immediately because the body never tells a lie.
True, true.
And the other thing is, which is a journey by itself, is to actually be non-judgmental. And that has to be done on a minute-to-minute daily routine.
And you deal with a lot of clients who wants to keep things confidential and, in terms of building that trust, what is the connectivity that you have with your clients?
So the first thing that I always tell clients when they come to see me, just to break the awkwardness, as I always ask them, what is it about me that you would like to know that would make you comfortable? Because when you really step back and you look at a strange person, I'm going to a strange person and I'm going to be actually telling them my whole story. To me, they're actually disrobing themselves in their vulnerability. And trust is, they're asking you to be confidential about their exposure of vulnerability. They're not asking you to, some business deal. That's not what it is. Those are all just the frills of it. So the whole journey begins then. It's just about comfort, the ability to say, you won't judge me for what.
I think that's what makes a good counselor, right? Because I'm sure you go to a party where you have 5 people and 2 of them are your clients, and you know much more than what they look or what they're talking there. So you have to have that kind of switch on, switch off as a counselor and as a socialite, right?
So here is another thing that I've done consciously, because if you take Bangalore now, I have a lot of clients who are very high profile and well known. I minimize my interaction. Yes, if there's something formal and I need to go, I do. Otherwise, I don't get into this weekly partying, etc. Simply because there can be an assumption that I have all this information about these people's lives, and will that become fodder at a party? So just to minimize that risk, I do lead a fairly quiet social life. Yes, I attend events and functions that I'm expected to.
But you as a person, you're okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you are a home person, you're okay with your network and close network.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now, you are the first or the only TSTA from India. Give us a little bit about that and how did that happen?
Again, so TSTA is a training and supervising transactional analyst. Now what happened is, again, India, because these are all new fields, everybody, I think all of you have heard about psychoanalysis, which was very Freudian.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do counselling simply because I believe that our country was and is not yet ready for psychoanalysis. Okay. We're slowly moving towards counselling, which is a little more acceptable. So I worked in that area. And one of the other choices that I had in counselling is that counselling always provides hope.
Sure.
In psychoanalysis, what happens, we are constantly looking at, in my view, our traumas, whatever they are, big or small. And I'm a person who is fundamentally hopeful. So I look for how to move on. Yeah. And that's how I chose that. And then transaction analysis coming in India, there was nobody in counselling.
Okay.
So I decided that I would take that up. And now, of course, I train people in transaction analysis and in becoming TA counsellors.
Anna, pre-counselor, post-counselor, what is the biggest change that you've seen or your family has seen in you? You've gotten more patient, more positive?
I've got a huge client base, yes. I think what I see in my personality as such, pre-counselor would be friendly, extroverted, internally afraid. Post-counseling, and now I see friendly, much more reflective, but much more anchored within myself. I'm just comfortable with being who I am.
Talking about depression, talking about people with mental illness, based on my experience, broadly I would want to categorize into 3 and get your views on that. 1, people who are extremely negative and feel like suiciding every time. So what exactly happens in their mind, and what is your advice to someone who's seeing this, who's thinking of suiciding now?
So let me put it very crisply to you. Suicide is actually a very complex issue. But if you're looking at people attempting suicide from depression, the pain And when we call what I say the pain is the psychological pain is so deep and so debilitating that it's at that point that the person feels that I can't take this pain anymore, and they just look for a way to get rid of the pain, and therefore they attempt or want to
Suicide.
commit suicide.
So what do you tell people like that who's seeing this show?
When I know somebody is suicidal, that is the point that you have to be extremely hopeful for them.
Sure.
Hopeful in also discussing with them their plans of suicide. You know, this is something people don't realize, that you need to talk to them about it, what's really going on, and keep reinforcing them that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So it's very, very difficult, and actually suicide is a cry for help, and we have something called a 1-minute window. So if somebody who is going to commit suicide, at the last minute, if they call you, it's important to engage with them continuously
For more than a minute.
for more than a minute, then that would have passed.
Okay.
So it is a cry for help. It's
But most of the times, do people in the last minute, as you say, will they cry for help?
yes,
Will they have conflicts in their mind whether to go ahead or not?
yes.
Okay.
I myself have had clients who've called me and said, I'm going to do something. So it will be a very cryptic message.
Sure.
For example, about 2 months ago, it was a Sunday afternoon, I got this message on my mobile saying, my parents don't care, and why would you care?
It's a very negative message.
Yeah, what's life about? So immediately I became alert, and I called the family and I said, where is so-and-so? And they said, well, he's in Bombay. I said, who is with him in Bombay? And they said, well, he's at a hotel. He's gone for the weekend. I said, then you need to call the reception immediately and get the room opened.
And was he?
Yeah, and then he was very upset with me for saying, why did you inform my parents? But again, here is the catch. Everybody talks about confidentiality. Confidentiality is we maintain as counselors in keeping confidential information that is not harmful.
Sure.
But if I find that my client is going to harm either themselves or somebody else, then yes, I need to. It's ethical.
That's your responsibility.
Yes, it's a social responsibility, it's a moral responsibility, it's an ethical responsibility to prevent that.
Sure. And the second group of people whom I've seen is somebody who's extremely negative. There's something good happening in life, but they still talk about, oh, this is not happening. They talk about the negative aspects of their life. What is that kind of illness in the mind?
Okay, so that is really not about clinical depression. That is about these, when I see the world, when my world view itself is one of lack of hope and negativity, is basically because my world view of my self, in unconscious self, is negative.
Like that.
So I see my whole world view becomes like that. So with such people, it's more important to work with them in counselling to build their sense of self, which is very fragile.
Sure. And the third one is people who are extremely insecure in relationships, be it work, be it personal life. They're jealous, they are possessive, overly possessive, and they're insecure. So what is that?
So these are what we call needy people. Sure. And needy people is again, metaphorically, I can say that I'm so empty inside. I'm like an empty vessel. So I'm attaching myself to one individual or several individuals, or I feel good putting down somebody, or I'm envious of somebody. It's only to make myself feel better, even temporarily. So again, these are all self-image issues, self-structure issues.
And we spoke about depression a while ago. Depression word itself is used very lightly. So I call up my friend and say, I'm feeling so depressed today. What exactly is depression?
Depression that is used in day-to-day parlance is I'm feeling low, I've not had a good day, I've had a broken relationship.
Yeah.
Depression that we're talking with regard to
mental illness
is clinical depression.
Sure.
It's a chemical imbalance in your body. Just like when I have diabetes, my pancreas is not secreting adequate insulin. When I have depression, there is an inadequacy of adequate hormones and that I need for functioning of my brain.
So how do you identify somebody who is depressed?
So there are some common symptoms, external symptoms. There are many of them, but some of the few that I can say is people talk about it's like I have a cloud over my head.
Feel heavy.
I feel fuzzy. I feel heavy. I'm not able to see anything in the future looks bleak. I have a pain in the pit of my stomach. It's an emptiness. I feel an empty kind of pain in my stomach. Some people have high levels of anger and irritability. They're they're edgy. They're all the time edgy. Then there are people who actually have apathy. When you say that, I wake up in the morning, I want to get out of bed, but I just have an inability to get out of bed.
You feel like you just feel heavy. You can't get up.
Your limbs are almost not moving.
Wow. I want to bring in Deepika Padukone here because she's been an example for fighting depression. So when she first started talking to you, did she know something that there was something going on with her, or was it that you identified through her talks and phrases that she was depressed?
No. So in Deepika's case, she knew something was not okay with her. She knew that, as she says in her own words, something was going on with her. She didn't know. So when she called me, when we first spoke, it was on the telephone, and she was talking and she was weeping. And there was a certain tone in her voice that indicated to me that, Deepika's young, all young people, I'm a mother. The first time when your young person says, I'm not feeling good, the first thing that crosses your mind is there some relationship issue?
Sure, that's the most
common thing. So, but the significance for me was that tone in the voice while she was crying was very different, and I got a sense that there's much more to this. So I flew to Bombay the next morning and spent the day with her. And by the end of the day, I was just watching the symptoms, watching her, move in and out of symptoms. I was sure that, she has depression and she has clinical depression. And I shared with her at the end of the day, I said, we will need to go to a doctor. And of course, as she shared, she was very resistant initially. It took me about 2 months of
counselling,
convincing her back and forth. So when, again, you have to be very gentle. So I would say, we need a doctor, and then she would say no. So I would keep quiet. Then a few days later, I would again say, we need a doctor. We need to see a doctor. And finally, I think she said, okay, you find me a doctor and you come with me and we will see a doctor. And that's how she came back.
Got medical help.
Yeah. So we didn't take medical help in Bombay because of who she is. We came back to Bangalore.
But does it happen with most of your clients? Do they have the resistance to go and see and get medical help?
A lot of them have. However, after the Deepikas come out in public, a lot of them are less resistant.
And it's supremely brave of her to actually come and talk about it. But when she told you that she wants to go public and talk, what was your reaction?
If I need to be really honest and authentic, I was a bit scared for her. I asked her a few times, are you sure? Because I was not scared about coming out in public for that. I just wondered will there be consequences on her career because she was doing well? Are we now just going to open a Pandora's box and everybody's going to be talking about her? So it was more out of concern. And here I want to say that I really, really have great admiration for Deepika because she looked at me and she said, I will cope and I will do this.
Wow.
And the moment she said, I will cope and I will do this, then, it gave me complete confidence that, okay, if
she
there
can handle it.
And if there are some hiccups because of that, we'll deal with that together.
Sure. That's brilliant. So that gave to the birth of Live, Love, Laugh Foundation. So tell us more about that.
The Live, Love, Laugh Foundation, and Deepika coined the term because that's what she believes, her philosophy of life. It crystallized with her feeling that she needed to give back. She wanted to do something for society, and having the visibility that she does, this was something that was close to her heart.
And the reach, right?
Yeah, and that's how we started. It was, and she identified. There are 4 of us who are actually the trustees. What's the beauty of the Live, Love, Laugh Foundation is that Deepika is very involved. It's not just that she started a foundation and she is involved.
She dedicates time. Right?
She gives time, she asks questions, she's actively involved in the development.
So tell me, what does Live, Love, Laugh do? As a common man, for me, if I want to take help from Live, Love, Laugh, what does it do?
So Live, Love, Laugh, we are a trust, and we are in what we call, we are a nodal foundation. So when we say nodal, is at this point I want to tell you there are several small NGOs doing phenomenal work in mental health, but because of the stigma, they don't get funding.
Yeah.
They are not recognized for the work, community work they do. So Live, Love, because of Deepika, we have already established a certain visibility. So one of the first, in our first stage, one of our first goals is to create an awareness and destigmatization program for mental illness, give the public information. We've also created, when we launched our foundation, the first mental health database available in India, and that is a comprehensive. So if you look at our website, you can actually go, there's a map of India, and if you just say key in Nagpur, immediately through geo mapping, we will be able to the map will, on the database, all the mental health professionals available with their name, address and telephone number in Nagpur, closest to where you live.
A handbook type.
Yeah, and this is we have the biggest database which is constantly being uploaded, which nobody else has created.
That's lovely. So, but where is the presence of Live, Love, Laugh currently? Only in Mumbai?
So the registered office is in Bangalore actually, because Deepika is from Bangalore, and we've just opened our office last month in Indiranagar. The operational office. The team sits there. We've hired 2 people, a director and a program leader. I chair the trust. I also sit in that office so that I do my private practice and also manage some of the activities. We have a few more trustees, and we have trustees meetings regularly. So 2016 onwards is actually when the foundation launches in a
bigger way.
More, in not just bigger, but I think with a larger plan and
scalability. You can scale
and
it up.
Effective ideas.
Sure. How much government is taking initiative in terms of making this more and more reachable?
I think government, with the interview, people have actually, there's been a, NIMHANS has told us that the increase of number of people who've come for outpatient has increased. Government is taking note of, because again of the visibility. We had a launch on the 10th of October in Mumbai, where we had people from different walks of life attending the launch to say that the foundation has gone live, and we've registered ourselves. So I think in terms of government taking notice, one of the things that WHO has said is by the year 2020, according to their statistics, 35% of India's population will be depressed, which is huge.
And it is alarming.
Yeah, and we are a young country.
Young country, exactly. Yeah.
We have the largest number of young. So it's alarming, and I think awareness is what we're really working on.
To all the young people seeing this, and we call ourselves as the strawberry generation. People have, they want instant gratification, they don't have the patience. As a counsellor, what do you want to tell young India?
As an older Indian, I would say don't be in a hurry. You will achieve. Take a few breaths regularly. Breathe.
Yeah, that's important. Nothing's going to happen, right? Just breathe. Sure. This season, Bangalore season that we're doing, one of the things we're talking about is cancer. We're trying to spread awareness on cancer because along with mental illness, I think cancer is rapidly increasing. So what is your experience of, have you dealt with people who've undergone treatments, diagnosed with cancer? 2 parts to it. One is patients and the other one is families of cancer patients.
2 things. I've actually had clients who've had cancer. Two of them specifically are no more.
That's sad.
And then currently I have a friend who's a very, very close friend who's just been diagnosed. So cancer is very close to my heart in that sense. I think one of the things in what I find as a gap in cancer in India is that the caregivers of cancer patients do not receive adequate counselling.
Absolutely.
Okay. And what we don't recognize is when I'm a caregiver, I'm engaging with this patient all the time, and therefore I need to be positive, I need to be hopeful. I can't just do the duty of caregiving, because recovery does get impacted then. So I think to me that would be really, really, and is important and is a necessity now in this country.
Sure.
So that would be something that I think even hospitals don't give that importance for counselling and for the psychological aspect to both
Correct.
cancer patients and the
families, right?
Yeah.
Because cancer is more, of course, it's a physical illness. It's more mental as well. You got to be positive. You got to be strong to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's very tough to fight cancer. So, is there something that the hospitals can do better in terms of counseling, having a wing for families, having a wing for cancer patients? Most of the times, I mean, my experience of dealing with hospitals is that they give brilliant, they treat cancer patients very well. There is technology, state of the art, but they lack, as you said, the counseling aspect. So, is there something that they can bridge the gap?
I think so. I think they have to have psychologists who are really specialized in cancer and palliative care and family care and family therapy, because the whole family is dealing with the illness. There's one person who's got the illness, but in some way that illness touches the lives of the others.
What would you want to send a message across to all the people currently dealing, cancer patients and the families?
I think again to have hope. And the other thing which I find really, really often is that, when somebody is diagnosed with cancer, it's very natural that the next word that automatically comes into their head is death.
Yeah, it shouldn't be the case.
Yeah, yet it's okay to talk about death.
It's okay to talk about it, yeah.
And what happens is, a lot of times, the talking about death is so frightening for the caregivers that they actually do not allow this person to talk, but that's natural. So I think that's where really the role of the psychologist is fundamental.
Absolutely.
Because the patient has a place to talk about death, to talk about fears of death. These are all natural, human, existential questions.
If they don't talk, they just keep thinking about it and it affects their mental
and then
health.
internalizing and bottling it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people who have never experienced loved ones with cancer, so it's very important for them to take care of it. So what would you tell all of them?
To me, again, what I would say is the symptoms of cancer are physical, but cancer also has a mental component.
Sure.
For example, now they're doing more and more research and saying cancer is caused by unresolved anger.
Really?
Internalized anger. They're doing a lot of research. So, you need to be able to talk about these things. These are expressions. Whatever illness we have, we need to remember that our body is expressing it.
All right. In conversation with Anna Chandy, we are going to be right back. Welcome back. We are in conversation with Anna Chandy. Anna, this is a fun segment, rather something that we'll get out more about you through quick questions. It's called Quickie 10. I'll ask you some simple questions, one word or one sentence answers. One advice from someone which changed your life.
What my trainer said, always question yourself after everything.
Wow. One client who you would never forget.
I can't mention her name, but I think she expanded my frame of reference. She had a sexual preference, and in our discussion, and this was early in my career, she was able to highlight how I was uncomfortable with those days with people of sexual preference. So I had to actually do a lot of work on myself to
Understand.
Yeah.
One alternate career you would have chosen if not counseling?
I think I would have loved to be a sociologist, because I think sociology is a subject that's very rich and really not many people
Sure.
are studying it.
One thing that gives Anna a kick.
Massages.
One biggest regret of your life, if you have any.
Not having lived a few years somewhere outside my country, I travel a lot,
Sure.
but those are short stints. I somehow feel that maybe my frame of reference would have been more rich if I had lived for a few years.
One thing that you cannot live without.
Reflection and quiet time. I need it. It's like a medicine for me.
One thing that you want to change about Bangalore.
Infrastructure.
One favorite destination that gives you a lot of inner peace.
I think the English countryside. I just love the
Serenity.
greens when I see that.
One thing that you enjoy the most apart from counseling.
Just spending time with people in a casual way, not intense.
Not analyzing, not understanding,
Yeah.
just speak.
Yeah.
One message or a word to describe the following people. Deepika Padukone.
A woman of immense grit.
Her father, Mr. Prakash Padukone.
A true example of simplicity.
Dr. Shambhat.
The first doctor I've experienced from India who looks at medical aspects holistically, using, and to be more specific, using both the Western information and the Indian information. Combination of allopathy and Ayurveda.
Sure. You've met Mary Kom before, so what would you like to tell her?
Immense focus to get what she wants.
What about Anisha Padukone?
Determination.
Milind Diora?
I think his authenticity impacted me when I met him.
What about Ramya, the South Indian actress?
I think for her, I really see a fiery spirit and political acumen, which I hope she gets what she deserves.
She's very ballsy, right?
Yeah.
What next for you in 2016, personally and professionally?
Professionally, I think I'm moving, I'm slowly moving to the next phase. What I would really like to do is, yes, private practice continues, but in a larger world, more into motivational talks, working with the young, working with Indian community. I see myself going into that space. Personally, I think I want to travel much more. I love travel. I want to be able to take breaks and travel more and more around the world and see places, not
perspective.
regular places. Like I have a great desire that there's a, once a year there's a National Geographic cruise that goes into expeditions. I'd love to be on that.
Great having you. I got a lot out of this interview for myself. I'm sure the viewers would have loved that. Thank you for coming on the show. What are your final thoughts on being the show, the experience?
I think first I would really like to applaud you, being young, that you've taken on this initiative. I like the format that is very casual and it's not very theoretical.
Sure.
Because in the end, I think people relate more to personal lives of people than some theory that's put out there. And I was happy in the shoot because I found, I just love being with, I'm going to be 53 next month, but I just love being with people who are so much younger than me because I learned something. I learned a lot this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for all the good wishes, and you've been very supportive for the show. A small token of appreciation for you for coming on the show. This is probably for your husband.
Thank you.
So you have a Christmas present for him already. Before we go, let's take a selfie.
I hope you've enjoyed this video and there will be some learning for you. We create these kind of videos really for learning. Learning is part of our empowerment. So if you do enjoy this, subscribe, like and share.
This is an exclusive sari and attire designed for you by me through a very startup brand called Vinay.